Hey, mamas, you are listening to the Motherhood is Ghetto podcast. We all know motherhood can be a beautiful thing, but girl, it can also be ghetto. Join me as we discuss some of the best and worst parts of being a mom raising kids, all while trying to figure out this thing called life. This ghetto is a safe space, mamas. So, welcome to the hood. Hey, mamas, welcome back to another episode of the Motherhood is Ghetto podcast. My name is Joy, and y'all, I have been away for like 2 weeks, I think. I think it's been 2 weeks since I uploaded a podcast for y'all, and I missed y'all. Amen, amen. I hope you guys have been having great weeks. Um, so I wanted to this episode might be a little bit longer because I need to catch up with you guys, like for real, for real. So many things have been going on this last couple of weeks that I want to share with you guys. So bear with me. It might take me a minute to get to the episode. But how y'all doing? Like, how are y'all feeling? Like, for me, it has just been a very busy, productive whirlwind of the last 2 weeks. So I'll give you guys kind of like an update, of what I've been doing and what's been going on. So first things first, today in my ghetto motherhood is Monday. um so the kids are at school right now. And I have the day off from my 9 to 5 today, which is something that I want to touch on. So, my new recording schedule for this podcast will be Mondays. And it's so funny because the weeks leading up to like 2 weeks ago, I was listening back to some of my podcast episodes and stuff, and and I was noticing like all the times like you could hear like my kids in the background and like just them playing or making noise and stuff. And I know that my podcast is 100% organic. It's raw, it's natural. Like I speak and I talk off the cuff. Like I don't usually really have any like script or anything prepared. Like I have a topic I want to talk about, but when I start talking, like it's just like, off the dome, and I'm just being organic and sharing with you guys. But when I was listening back to the podcast, I was like, I know, like, it's authentic and they probably understand, like, I do got kids, but for me, at least, I want to deliver you guys a quality podcast, a quality product. And I don't think that you guys deserve to hear my kids all the time in the background. Even though you guys probably don't mind and I haven't heard anybody complain about it yet. However, just for me, I was feeling like y'all deserve better and I deserve to give you guys a better quality product. So, up until 2 weeks ago, I've been praying. I was like, man, like, I wish, I had more quiet time here at the house because I'm full time everything. Like, I'm full time mom. I'm a full time corporate America worker. I'm a full time business owner, trying to get, my business off the ground and successful and stuff like that. So, usually I'm here at home, a lot with my kids if I'm not at work or doing something else. And I was just praying, like, even not only for like the quiet time to be able to do this podcast and to do my work, but I was also praying for the quiet time just to be able to pray, like, and sit and talk with God and, you know, like tap into like my intuition and like the divine spirit and stuff like that, and just have that time to talk and conversate with God, and just that quiet time. And I was finding that I would try to wait until the kids went to sleep or something at night. And I would think in my head, like, okay, once they go to sleep, I'm going to record this podcast. Or, once they go to sleep, I'll take out my journal and I'll start praying and I'll start writing in my journal and stuff like that. But then, like, every time I would try to do that, it would be so late. Like, I would be tired. Like, I'm too tired, like, to record a podcast. And, I don't want this podcast to end up turning into something that I don't like, because right now I'm enjoying this and I'm enjoying doing this podcast, not only for me and for my children, but for y'all too. And I didn't want it to turn into something like, oh, I'm tired, but I got to get out this podcast because 10 o'clock at night is the only time it's quiet in my house. So I didn't want that for myself. And I didn't want that for y'all, because that's doing y'all a disservice too if I'm not 100% in it and I'm tired and I don't feel like doing it. So I've been praying, for just some time and some space to be able to pray and do my podcast uninterrupted and just vibe out, and enjoy being in the quietness and the solitude. So 2 weeks ago, at my 9 to 5, I was approached to move to a different department, which meant that it would change my hours. So instead of me working Monday through Friday and having the weekends off when my kids are here, I now have Sunday, Monday off. So Mondays, I've decided to dedicate to my podcast because they won't be here. They'll be at school. And I have all day. Like, I have from the time they go to school until the time they get home from school to record and dedicate to this podcast and give y'all uninterrupted quality content. So amen to that. First off, that was the first blessing. I was like, wow, like, look at God coming through. You know what I'm saying? So the second thing that I like is my hours changed. Before I was working 8 to 4:30. Now I'm working 8:30 to 5. And I'll tell you guys why I love that so much. In the mornings, every morning I take my daughter to her bus stop to catch the bus to school. And for the last few weeks, I had been noticing, because normally, we go there, I drop her off, and then she waits with the other kids, and then I go on to work. So that way I was having to be at work at 8 o'clock. And so when I would drop her off, I would have just enough time to get through traffic and everything to get to work on time. But then, there was a couple of days that I had noticed that when I would pull up to the little bus stop, she would just kind of look at me with those big, beautiful brown eyes of hers. And I was getting the sense like she didn't want me to leave. Like, she wanted me to sit with her and stay with her. And I didn't ask her if that's what she wanted. I just kind of caught that vibe from her just by looking at her eyes. So when I saw her do it the first day, I looked at her and I put the car in park and we just sat there until her bus came. And it was kind of like an unspoken agreement, and I just understood without her having to say it. And then the second day, I go to drop her off. She did the same thing. She looked up at me with them eyes. She threw them eyes on me, y'all. And I put the car in park and we sat there. So that's what we had been doing every day. And it was making me late for work, but I didn't tell her that because I didn't care. I was like, my baby wants me to sit with her until the bus comes. That's what I'm going to do. The job will be there when I get there, basically. But I know that it doesn't look good for me that I'm coming in late every day, but at the same time, I need to be there for my children. And I never expressed that to my daughter. I never said, you're going to make me late, and I never rushed her out of the car or anything like that. So that's what we have been doing. So now that my schedule has been moved 30 minutes to 8:30, now I don't even have to take her to the bus stop anymore. Amen. I can actually take her to school, which means that we can spend more time in the mornings together in the car ride instead of me having to drop her off at a bus stop. I can just take her on to school and then go on to work and still be able to make it to work on time by 8:30. So it was like a double blessing with my schedule change and my off day change. So I was really happy about that, and I was praising God, and I was like, thank you, like, oh my God, like I asked and it was given to me. So I really, really appreciated that. So new new recording schedule will be on Mondays. So every Monday I'm going to try to put out a podcast for you guys. If I miss a Monday, then I'll just come back on the next Monday and try to put something out, maybe put out 2 episodes. But I'm feeling so good. So that's number 1. So number 2, last Friday, I went out of town. I flew out to LA because I was a part of a manufacturing tour because I want to expand my head wrap line and I want to work and partner with a manufacturer that can manufacture my head wraps for me, cut, sew, source fabric, all that good stuff. So I went on this tour with a group of other business owners in search of like maybe either launching their fashion line or getting like working with someone on their ideas, like for, a clothing line or a line of dresses, whatever the case may be. So and what I really took away from this trip, like, is that I need not be afraid, like, to go out there, put myself out there, and literally find what I'm looking for. Because I will admit, like, halfway through the tour, like, I was feeling overwhelmed because I was hearing different fashion terms and stuff that I'd never heard before. And I was feeling a little bit, intimidated and like feeling like should I really even be here? Like this seems like it's over my head and more than what I'm trying to do. So I definitely had some imposter syndrome step in and I was starting to doubt myself and I was like, maybe I shouldn't be here. Like maybe this was the wrong decision, the wrong investment. But by the time we got to the end of the tour, the last manufacturer that we met with, like I absolutely loved her. I loved her vibe. I loved what her company stood for. And I was like, I really, really want to work with you. Like, and I pitched my business to her and I, told her what I was working on and what I hope to do with my business, like in the future and going forward. And she was like, I love that. Like, I love that. And I would love to work with you. So we exchanged information and, so hopefully soon we'll be working on some things like as far as head wrap designs and stuff like that and different fabrics. And I'm just excited. So I'm glad that I went. I'm glad that I got that opportunity. It was amazing because I really didn't know where to start finding a manufacturer for my business. And that was a good place to start. So I appreciate that tour so much. And then y'all, LAX tried to hold me hostage because it was just a day trip to LA. Like I left Friday morning and I was supposed to come back Friday night, like at 10 o'clock at night. But my flight got delayed 3 times and by midnight they canceled the flight completely. So I had to spend the night at LAX. Y'all, that was the worst experience of my life. It was cold. I was tired. Like I just wanted to go home, like literally. Like if I could have stood there in the middle of the airport, like jumping up and down, like I want to go home. Like I would have did that if that would have helped me to get home. Like, and I was just so frustrated. I was like, well, maybe I can just rent a car and just drive, back to Vegas. It'd only be 4 hours and I'll still make it home before the next morning flight out. And I was texting my mom, and my mom was like, no, don't do it. Like, because the weather was really bad. It was raining and like just awful weather. So she was like, no, just find a corner, lay down somewhere, try to get some rest, and leave in the morning. So that's what I ended up doing. I didn't leave until Saturday morning, at like 8 o'clock. After 8 o'clock, got back to Vegas, and then had to had to clock in for my 9 to 5. So I was, by Saturday night, y'all, I was so tired. Like, I don't even remember what I was doing before I fell asleep. All I knew is that I woke up the next morning. I was like, what happened? Um but yeah, overall it was a great experience. I'm glad that I was able to get something out of it. And I was just like, the whole time, like, when I had those moments when I was doubting myself and doubting that I should even be there, like, I kept hearing my husband's voice in my head saying like, girl, why shouldn't you be here? Like, you better believe you are the prize. Like, you are supposed to be here. You made it here, so you're supposed to be here. And don't doubt yourself. Don't quit. Like, have just as much you have just as much reason to be here as everybody else here. Like, this is you. Like, you got this. So I just kept hearing my husband's voice, and I was like, I'm gonna see this through to the end. So at the end, I finally found what I was looking for. So I was like, thank you, God. Like, just the blessings just keep coming. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, it was very much giving main character energy, like, for me. Like, I just felt like I was a star in my own movie. Like, the way, like, things were just moving and connecting for me. Like, it was just, I was amazed. Um, so that's pretty much what's been going on with me these last couple weeks. So, yeah, I'm happy to be home. I'm happy to be recording this podcast today to put out for y'all. So, yeah, that's it for the catching up. So, let's get into today's episode. So, today I want to talk about how we talk to our kids in situations where maybe they are the aggressor or they are the problem. So I'll share this scenario with you guys. This is a real true story. So on the day that I left for LA to go on the manufacturing tour, we all met up at this coffee shop, and we're waiting for, the tour bus to get there so we could start the tour. And right when we're about to leave, I get a call, and it's from the assistant principal of my son's elementary school. So I answer it, and, she comes on, and, she says, like, I want to talk about Solomon. And I was like, oh, shit. I and then that's what first got me thinking immediately, like, I shouldn't have left. Like, I should have stayed home because something's wrong now. Like, the moment I leave, like, something is wrong. But anyway, so I'm talking to the assistant principal, and she's like, first, I just want to commend you on how well spoken Solomon is. And she's like, that is a testament to you and your parenting. And I just want to say that first and foremost, he speaks so eloquently and so clear and precise. And I was like, thank you. I appreciate that. But then she proceeds to tell me the reason why she's calling. And I won't go into detail what my son did, because he's going to be listening back to this when he gets older. And I told him that, I would never make you feel shame or embarrass you in any kind of way, to his face or not in his face. So I won't say what he did per se, but in the situation, he was definitely the perpetrator. He was the aggressor. And it wasn't like one of those things where, like, well, no, my son was defending himself or my son was speaking up for himself. My son spoke completely out of turn. He said some things he should not have said to another student. and he ended up getting suspended from school. So I'm listening to this lady tell me this. We're like literally about to walk out of this coffee shop and start this tour. And I'm on the phone with the assistant principal, and my heart just falls into my stomach. I'm like, oh my God. Like, and I'm not there. Like, I'm not there. And I just felt so bad. And I was like, okay, like, I understand. I'll call my mom to see if she can come pick him up, because they were like, he cannot be on campus today. He needs to leave immediately. And I was like, shit. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, I was like, that I literally, there's nothing I can do because I'm not there. So my mom was able to go pick him up. And then later on that night, when I was on my way back to the airport, he called me and he was like, Mom, I want to talk to you about what happened today. So we talked about it a little bit, but I was like, we can talk about it more when I get home. So he was like, okay. And so when I got back on Saturday, we talked about it, but ultimately, what I did was I ended up grounding him, telling him that he couldn't play with his PlayStation or his VR headset, and he couldn't play games and stuff on his phone. So pretty much he's on restriction for the next 2 weeks. But I wanted to share this with you guys because I've never been in a situation where my child was the issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, if something was going on at the school, and even recently, like right before my husband passed away, he was having a problem with one of his classmates, one of the younger classmates hitting him. And now with my son, he's in a autism program, so that means the classroom he's in is very like focused on one-on-one, like one-to-one instruction and stuff like that. So, and with that, he's in a classroom with a lot of other, well, not a lot of other kids. He's in there with other kids who are also autistic, but he's kind of like mixed in with other grades. So he's in the 4th grade, so there may be 3rd graders and 2nd graders in the classes with him. So he was having an issue with one of the younger students hitting him. And so I had to go up there and, say like, because Solomon, he's the type of person like, he won't do anything unless you provoke him, but he knows not to harm children who are littler than him, because he understands he's big for his age and he could possibly hurt someone. But there was even instances like that where I had to go up to the school and like defend my son and be like, no, like my son, I know he's big and it's just a little kid hitting him, but I don't want anyone to think that it's okay to put their hands on him, little person or not little person. So there's things like that, like we've had to go up to the school for and kind of straighten out for him. And we would have to let him know, like, no one is allowed to touch you, period. Like, in any way. Like, no one should have any reason to put their hands on you. So he understands that. But this was an instance where, like, I couldn't defend what my son did. And he pretty much had to stand in his shit. And I had to stand in it with him. And I felt just as bad as he felt. And so I wanted to talk about that and unpack that and just ask y'all, like, have y'all ever had to deal with that where like your kid is the problem, and how do you kind of talk through that, like, and make them understand, like, yes, like this is something that you did and it's inexcusable. So I'll share with you guys kind of like what I did, and hopefully it's helpful for you guys. Because like I said, like I've never had to do this before with any of my kids. So this was a new one for me in my motherhood journey. So when we started talking, I just started off by asking, because I knew what had happened, but I wanted to hear it from him. I knew what the principal was saying was not a lie, because sometimes when the school calls, like the scenario or the way they break down the story just might not seem right. So I was like, I knew from jump, like I wanted to hear what happened in the words of my son. So I asked him, like, son, what happened? What happened at school? So he broke down the story just like the principal explained it to me, which was good. Like nothing was different from what she said to what he said. Like everything he said was 100% spot on with what I was told. So, and I told him, I said, I appreciate you for being honest with me and honest with the principal and, taking ownership for what you did. Like, that's a good thing. However, I need you to know that what you did, it was not good and it is not acceptable. And I really wanted to stress to him, because I feel like as a Black mother raising Black children, like the conversations that we have with them have to be different than other children of other races. Like it's necessary, because at the way that I was feeling at that point, I was like, I need to let my son know that one, he shouldn't be saying things like that, period. But two, he should not be saying it because the mere fact that he is a Black little boy and everything he says and does is going to be scrutinized and looked at more closely than it would another student of another race. And that's just a reality. Like that's my truth and that's my reality. So I'm raising my sons to be aware and have the wherewithal that I can't get away with all the things that another student might be able to get away with. And it could be because of the color of his skin. It could be just because, the policies in the school or whatever like that. But I need to make sure that my Black sons are armed with that information. And like, you can't say what you want. You can't say what you want 100% of the time, because you're looked at differently. You're not looked at as a kid who just said something and he didn't mean it. Like, no, you're looked at as this big Black boy, said something to this little white student. And that's just the reality of it. Like, yeah, could any student have gotten in trouble for what my son said? Like, if they had said it, yes. But I just need my son to know that he has to move differently in society and hold himself up in a different way as he navigates through the world and grows up. No, like you are a young Black man that's eventually going to grow up into a Black man. Like, so you gotta maneuver in a different way. So when I was explaining to him, what he said was wrong, I also followed up with, how do you think, what are some different ways you think you could have handled the situation? And so he started telling me like different scenarios of what he could have did or how he could have handled his anger better. And I was like, so you understand. So that just lets me know that he understands and he has other ways to deal with his anger and his frustration. And I know that off the rip because I've seen him do it before. Like I've seen him calm himself down and bring himself down from a level 10 to like a level 2. Like he can do that himself now. He doesn't need me anymore for that. So when he was explaining to me different ways, that he could have handled the situation more better, that let me know like my son is not out to try to hurt anybody or make anyone feel bad. He was just in a moment. But with him being in that moment, I still needed him to understand that his actions have consequences and repercussions. But not once during our discussion did I make him feel bad because I didn't need to. And honestly, like, that's not how I rock. Like, I don't want to shame my kids for anything that they do. Like, if they make a mistake, I want them to learn from it. I want them to apologize to whoever they need to apologize to and be better going forward. So I didn't like shake my finger at him and say like, how could you? Like, this is the worst thing you could have done. Like, you should be ashamed of your, like, I didn't do any of that. Like, and I didn't try to shame him for what he did, but I did want him to understand that what he did was not cool and what could have possibly happened had it been escalated further. So by the time we were wrapping up and ending our conversation, I could see that he was feeling like he was gonna cry, but he was trying to hold back his tears. And I asked him, I was like, "What's the matter?" And he's like, "I'm just disappointed in myself." And and that almost brought me to tears because like I said, like I'm not for shaming, so I'm not finna tell him like I'm disappointed in you, like, but I did tell him, I told him that I know that he knows better. I know that he could have handled that situation differently. And he felt bad because he let himself down. And so I was like, that's understandable that you feel like you let yourself down. That's called remorse. Like that's a normal feeling. Because if you weren't feeling anything at all, like if you weren't feeling bad about what you did, then that's another problem we need to handle and tackle. But you feeling bad and feeling like you let yourself down, like that's a feeling that happens and it's normal. But I told him, I said, "Well, now we just have to focus on what we're going to do moving forward and how we're going to handle ourselves in the future." Um, and he was upset too that I did ground him. Not upset, mad, like he was just like, damn it, like I lost my freedom. Like I lost my freedom and now I can't do the things that I really want to do. And it sucks, but at first I was gonna go for a whole month. I was like, you're gonna be grounded for a whole month. But since this was his first offense technically, and we got it square with the school and stuff, and he was able to go back to school today and all that good stuff. I was like, I'm gonna do 2 weeks. And so he's very visual, so we have like a little whiteboard where we put the chore list, who's doing chores on what day. We have a daily affirmation. We have a word of the week. So on there, on the important dates side of the whiteboard, I put the date that he'll be off for restriction. So he looks at it every day and he's like, okay, I got so many more days until I'm not grounded anymore. But like I told him, I said, like, you're free to play outside if you want to, because the electronics is what he likes to do. Like he likes to play on his VR, he likes to play on his PlayStation, and he likes to play on his phone. But I don't want him to be a prisoner, So I told him, going outside is acceptable, playing outside, reading a book, drawing, if you want to write letters to dad, like, that's fine. But I was just like, yeah, the electronics, that's out, so you'll have to find other ways to occupy your time. So that's where we landed at with the whole scenario. And I was just like, and when I remember when I got the call from the principal, I was just thinking in my head, like, this is the time that I need my husband. Like, if there was not a better time than this for me to need that man, like right now, like it's happening because like, man, like my husband had learned to communicate with my son in a way that like it was just they were speaking their own language, and he always could get through to our son. And I've always felt like as his mother, I'm like, man, like I would look at them and I'm like, man, I wish like we had that connection like that. Like it was just like a language that only they spoke, and it's like they always understood each other. But I'm learning and I'm growing that connection with my son. And I try to take time every day with him, like just to sit, talk with him. hear about his day, like let him just express himself fully. But I was just like, oh God, like why now? Like why now when I'm not in town? I can't get to him. I can't talk to him. Like I can't do anything. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. But um we got through it and we're getting through it. And I think that this was like a wake up call for him, that like he really needs to like, just tighten up. Like it's just one of those things where like, and even with us as mothers, like we fuck up. Like like we fuck up and we feel bad about things that we've done in our past, and maybe even shameful at times. Like it's like, ooh, like I was not at my best. Like I really showed my ass. Like, but like I told my son, like it's about what we do going forward. As long as we have that open mind to change and to do things better for the next time, then that's what matters most. And that's what I told my son. I said, because you're going to keep making mistakes all throughout your life. And we as mothers, we're going to keep making mistakes. Like there's no perfect person on walking on this earth. We're going to fumble the ball sometimes, but that recovery is what's important and what matters for the longevity. So that's what happened, y'all. So now that I've had this experience with Solomon, if this should ever happen to come up with any of my other kids, like I'll be ready and I feel equipped and I feel ready to handle it and tackle it. If either one of my other children end up being the perpetrator or the culprit, where it's not a clear case of, well, they were just defending themselves or speaking up for themselves. Like, no, like you stepped out of line and there really wasn't a reason for it. So that's it, mamas. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you did, don't forget to share it with anyone else you might think would find it helpful. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at motherhood_ghetto so we can keep the conversation going. And the last thing that I want to tell you guys is back in December of 2022, I had the honor of being a guest on the Black Women Healing podcast, to share my podcast and to share how I'm navigating through motherhood, navigating through the loss of my husband. So I would really appreciate it if you guys would tune in to that episode, that interview. I will put a link to it in the show notes, and also give them a follow too. They have a really great podcast over there. And I was just fortunate and lucky enough to get the invitation to have an interview with them. And I'm really proud of the interview. I think that I shared some really great information that can help someone, who is in this motherhood journey with us all. So again, I will put the link to that interview in the show notes, or if you're following me on Instagram, I have a link to it in my bio and on Instagram too. But yeah, you will definitely not regret it. It was a great interview. So with that being said, mamas, I'm going to land the plane here. Thank you all again for listening in. And until next time, mamas. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Don't forget to follow the podcast and share with anyone who you think may enjoy it. And follow me on Instagram at motherhood_ghetto. Also, feel free to DM me if you have any experiences, opinions, or views on motherhood you'd like me to share on the podcast. Until next time, mamas.